Good afternoon, Silver Lining Gang. It's Andy here. I hope that you are having yourself a tremendous Tuesday. Now, let's kick off the afternoon with a bit of a bang, and no better bang, I think, than Melissa Cara. Melissa is a role model and a half for lots and lots of different people that are trying to get themselves a bit of freedom within their business lives and their home lives, particularly women that are looking to get up and running again as mums, yet they still want to be mums first and work second. And Mel is an absolute advocate for just that thing. Aside from anything else, she's just a happy character that, despite all the stuff that she's gone through over the last 12 months or so, has just been absolutely wonderful as a role model to everybody that follows her. Mel, how are you?
Good. I'm really good. I'm super excited to be here and joining you. It's been nice.
Hey, look, the pleasure is well and truly mine. Now, gang, this second series of The Silver Lining is all about looking to stage the greatest comeback in history, coming back off the canvas that 2020 has put us onto, and rising up like a phoenix and making the most of what has been an interesting year. Mel, how has 2020 served you so far?
It's been a roller coaster, but probably not the same as everybody else's in some ways. I did my own little rising of the phoenix kind of thing, and coming off the back of 5 months away, I came back working in February this year. So end of January, February this year. So to come back and to almost start again has been a fascinating time to launch again, really. So it's been a roller coaster.
You've kind of ridden this thing twice, once personally and then once from a macro sort of point of view, right? Where your world's kind of stopped twice, which has been very,
Yeah.
very interesting. And I want to have a chat about that and how your personal challenges affected how you rocked and rolled through COVID. But before we crack on, it's always a human first, professional second. Give us the highlight reel spiel as to who Mel is, where you're from. Clearly got an accent, so tell the world what that's about and what do you do.
I've been here so long. I'm American born, but been here in Australia 16 years. So I'm really half now. I actually am literally half now. So same amount of time in both countries, and started my professional life doing sales and moved into recruitment. I excelled in recruitment. I was, quite a well performer, and well, I can't even speak, right?
Well,
Well, we'll get there, right? And yeah, so did really well in recruitment, did that for 4 years in agency, and I'd done internal beforehand. And then I had my wonderful daughter, Eva, who really was the catalyst for everything in my life and the change of not wanting to go back to corporate. So I started my own agency from home and thought I need to share how to do this with everyone. And yeah, designed online courses, how to do that, and then started mentoring and coaching other, particularly women, but have worked with men as well during this journey. And now that's kind of where I'm at now.
interesting. Like, I mean, having the proverbial minerals to go forth and really look to take charge of your motherhood, your journey as a mom. I mean, that is something that very few women, whether it's to have the breathing space to do or the confidence to sort of take that sort of
Yeah.
leap of faith, or really feel that they have that degree of control over their lives, when obviously this bundle of joy comes into the world, and the natural mother's instinct is to serve and protect the baby, right? So you kind of feel that you're not of yourself anymore. What do you think? Let's go on. Let's start there. I mean, what was it within your life or within yourself or within your DNA that sort of gave you that confidence to really go, you know what, balls to it. I'm gonna, try and take control of my own life, my own motherhood, as early as you did.
Do you know, well, it's such a funny thing. I knew at like a month or 2 months old, when Eva was little, I can't do this full-time stay-at-home mom thing. And it was really funny because I remember we had a huge mothers group. It was 22 of us in this mothers group. And I'm sitting in the room, and the first kind of conversation topic that came up was, how do you feel about going back to work? And I was like one of the last women, and everyone was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I was like the first woman that's like stood up, and I was like, please send me back. I need to go back. And it's not actually because I wanted to get away from Eva. I have a beautiful husband, Nick, he's not a talker. And so he'd go to work every day and come home, and he'd need his hour to chill out. And, that's fine and all, except for when you're like me and you've been in this like really like recruitment's intense. Like it's the kind of place where you're interviewing all day, you're talking to your clients, you're the kind of like link between the two. And so, it's really always on the phone, and then you have to sell besides that. So, you're always on the phone, you're always talking to people. To go from that to stopping was like, whoa. And it was just intense. So it wasn't so much that, it was like, I need to do something. I knew I needed to go back to work, and they actually held my position for me, but wanted me to go back 8 to 5, working, half an hour from my house. And then by the time I drop off Eva to daycare, I'm like, okay, so it'll be 7 till 6 if I work my set hours, right? Like, that's not what I had a kid for. That's just not what I had her for. It was like, I want to raise her. I want to be with her, but I want to do it on my terms. And I think that's been something really understanding that I love working and actually owning that, because I feel like as women, we're kind of told we should really love this stay-at-home mom thing. And I'd be my first person to be saying, I'm flat out lying if I tell you I love the stay-at-home mom thing. I love being with my child more than anything in this world, but I love working, and I love harmony between the two too, because they both give me such things that I couldn't get from either.
Look, the thing that really sort of is massive for me with that is the fact that the ownership that you have over your own emotions, your own feelings, is quite significant there. I mean, just having the ability or the confidence, or I don't even know if it's confidence, just whether you even meant to be like this. Because I mean, when you go to things like these mothers groups, right? I suspect the volume of peer pressure to conform is really high, right? You said yourself, you get going around the room, and there's 21 of the 22 that are all saying, it's going to be so hard, it's going to be so hard, it's going to be so hard. The peer pressure to say the same thing would be really, really high, I would have thought, particularly when your body's gone through so much crap in the first place, right? And you're still going through the ups and downs of emotional changes and hormonal balances and all that sort of stuff. So to be able to be in that sort of frame of mind at that point, to say, yeah, look, I like working. I mean, my wife was exactly the same. Like, she was ready to go back to work and whatnot. She enjoyed working and what have you. But I just love that you are happy to admit it, and I think that's something that a lot of people need to feel a greater sense of freedom for, right?
Yeah, I think so too, to be honest. Like, I don't think we're all wired the same way, and to be like, yeah, and especially around motherhood, like, because I feel like we're all in this kind of like interesting journey together, like all my friends, right? We're all in this kind of same journey. And we were talking about it before, you and me. Like, my daughter doesn't sleep. She's just started sleeping at 3, and she's nearly 4, 3, nearly 4, and she's just started with some help. I got some help to help me kind of get it there. But like, we all have a different journey with it. And I've really realized, like, we went to sleep school, and we had like people in to help us. And they're like, oh, she's not responding to these techniques. We've had thousands of kids respond to these techniques. Well, we're all different, right? Like, we all do things differently. And, all our kids are different too. And all our needs are different, which kind of ties in.
I mean, I was chatting to. It reminds me of a conversation that we've had on the show with James and Sarah Bell up in Queensland. Fabulous couple, incredible parents. The way that they do their parenting, the way that they have got their family unit organised, it is different to what most people have. They too have gone down the au pair route that you have. So there's a synergy there and a similarity there between yourself and those guys. But you just can see that because they have taken ownership of their own parental destiny, shall we say, they are such incredible parents off the back of it. There's no denying it, right? They're kids. You never see them without a smile on their face. It's not like that, you know, your kids are really not neglected in any way, shape or form, because Sarah and James, they're both incredibly busy people in their own rights, and they're following their own passions and whatnot. But because they're giving themselves permission to do that, they are much happier around the clock as a result, as opposed to compromising on their passions because of being a parent. And that is just a trip that takes you down resentment lane, right? That's just
totally.
You just end up resenting your kids because, oh God, if it won't, like, how many times do you hear, whether it's on movies or in real life, how many times do you hear of, if I hadn't have had kids, I would have. If it wasn't for the kids, I would have done this. Yeah. And that's what I love about you. That's what I love about
really,
you.
Really adamant. I didn't want that. I wanted her to be, I was gonna say accessory, but that's not the right word. But I wanted her to add to the experience. You know, it was like she helped make it a more fulfilling experience. She makes my life so much more fulfilling every day. And do things change when you're a parent? Yeah, okay. You might not do everything exactly the same, but you know, we do things differently, and I love it. Like it's such a kick. Like being a parent is such a kick to help shape a little human. Like there's nothing more amazing than that in some ways. Yeah.
Now, let's dig into the whole history of you with regards to the thing, the penchant, the skill set for your natural DNA around sales and things like that. Where did that come from? Was it something that you were brought up around, or where did that sort of skill set, or where did you recognize that skill set?
I always wanted to do sales. I guess that's the thing. I know that's probably not what everyone wants to do, but I remember one of my first jobs, I was like receptionist and corporate, and they gave me the opportunity at Christmas when there was overflow work to go work in Meijer, selling in the department store, actually one of their products, how you get that Christmas people in. And I was like, yes, me, please send me, please, please, please. Because sales for me has never been about selling. It's just been about people and communicating and talking to people and getting to know people's stories and trying to help them, because, I'm not pushing something people don't like, something they don't want ever. It's always something that they're wanting and needing. And I'm basically a solution. So I've always loved with the solution selling kind of style, because it's just communication, in my opinion. It's never been icky. It's just that kind of communication.
I love that. I love the fact. I love your terminology there. It's just never been icky. I think that pretty much hits the nail on the head, right? Because a lot of people just assume that sales is an icky kind of process, and it makes people's stomach turn when you hear that this dude or this girl is a salesman or is a of some description, and there's that automatic assumption, good salesman. When I love that sort of transfer in wiring, where you said, no, I'm not selling, I'm just providing a solution. If you take it, it's kind of up to you, which is really, really good. You've always come across to me as a girl of confidence and whatnot. Background, family setup wise, were you always brought up to be confident, or did you have a particular event that gave you more confidence? What was the go there?
I was always very independent, I guess. Is probably I don't know if confidence. Yeah, I think I've always been kind of like the person that's always spoken up. I've always had a huge family, so I'm one of 5 kids. So so I think if you don't talk around, all those kids, you probably won't get hurt. But I don't know. I've always been raised to say what's on your mind. It doesn't mean you have to be pushy about it or whatever, but Yeah, always kind of been a little bit more adulting than my age. It's probably the best way to put it.
Fair enough. You've been mature beyond your years. I like it. I like it. Now, coming to your role now, I know I'm jumping around a bit, but coming into your role now and sort of tying the two elements of what we were talking about together, how have your conversations been with, and I'm not going to pigeonhole you, but, a lot of your clients are mums and whatnot.
Mm.
How have your conversations been with these mums during this particular period of time? What's the tone of these conversations been like?
Like coronavirus times, or
Yeah.
for me, I think coronavirus has really shown me it's really about serving. So, it might not be about instant gratification, but really finding better ways to serve and more
Mm,
unique ways to serve, and really getting your ducks in a row as well. Like, we have that little bit of leeway to kind of go, okay, so, I love lead magnets, for instance. I think lead
mm,
magnets are an awesome thing in a business. I think every business owner should own a lead magnet to some variety and probably continue to make lead magnets. And again, lead magnets are one of those things that probably get a bit of a bad salesy rap, but really, they're just solving problems again, giving people information that they want and they need,
mm,
and also showing you as an expert. So, really helping my clients show up as an expert themselves in what they do and create documents or quizzes or things that really showcase them as the expert they are, and helping people. People want to buy from people who help them. It's that simple at the end of the day, right? Like, so if you've got something that's helping them. So, my conversations have been really around, how do you show up as an expert? How do you give value? And when you give value, how do you give it to the most amount of people? And in my opinion, lead magnets are one of the best ways, because you can send out to 1,000 people a lead magnet. You can't do an hour consult with 1,000 people that week. It just
mm.
doesn't work that way. So, how can you get to the masses? How can you give as much value as possible?
With respect to that, and obviously, because I personally feel that one thing. This is what myself and Sadhna Smiles was saying on a couple of episodes ago. I've always had this belief around the stay-at-home parent, be it mum or dad, the stay-at-home parent being such an untapped resource in terms of skill set and talent and abilities and drive, because obviously being a parent is it's the most important job and what have you. So we're not belittling any of that, but there are so many stay-at-home parents that have got time, and my word, if they got it up here to really make something either for themselves or on behalf of someone else. So I mean, Nikki, our ops manager, she's only a part-time in office, and then the rest of the time she's at home. She's got the two kids, and she still has the time to rock and roll for me and chase my ass with paperwork and stuff like that. So this is where I'm really interested. That's why I was really keen on having you on, because you're a shining example of exactly what I'm talking about, is that capability and the ability that is in that well of talent that are stay-at-home parents. With everything that you know and do, and obviously with particular environment as it is, the greater acceptance around video conferencing and video interactions and so on and so forth. How do you see that landscape really opening up, both for the stay-at-home parents, but also for employers that are looking out for some of this talent?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on at the moment. I know, like, my husband's company, for instance, which is a large company, they're talking about not going back. So it looks like, this is kind of here to stay. And there's a lot of companies that won't have the opportunity to do that. But I do think it's going to make things like VAs, so virtual assistants, and virtual assistant can be really anything. I work with a number of virtual assistants. I work with a number of resume writers. I work with a number of all sorts of different people. Hey, Jessica, nice to see you too. So, all sorts of different people who have the opportunity to do this. And I think it's becoming more accepted, which is really the thing. It used to be where we had to kind of hide the fact. And I remember I felt this when I started my recruitment agency from home. It was actually a client who gave me the confidence to start my agency from home. I was like, oh, but I have Eva here, because I didn't have an au pair. I didn't have help at the time, right? And so I was like, oh, what if like they hear her crying, or what if they hear her, doing something, making noise, God forbid they hear a kid making noise, right? They're like, I had this like fear that it would make me look less professional. Well, all of that's gone now. There's no such thing. We're all on a level playing field at the moment, right? Like, I feel like the BBC newscaster is like really led the way on this pretty much. Like,
he really was a trailblazer, wasn't he? And I'm really glad it was a guy that it happened to as well. I'm really glad it was a guy that it happened. So, and you make a fascinating point, the fact that, and it's weird, right? We all say that kids are the most important thing in our lives and all this sort of stuff. Yet there is that, or there has been that element of fear or embarrassment almost that you are a parent in certain environments. Yeah. So, and I suspect this would particularly be the case for women, because that's the majority of the people that end up being the stay-at-home parents, right? So let's not beat around the bush with that. And obviously going back into corporate land, or trying to integrate back into some sort of white collar style environment where traditionally and even quite recently, I don't think it's unfair to say there is still a degree of alpha maleism kicking around. I don't think that's too far off the mark. There is that degree of embarrassment, right? There where you're like, I'm a mum, I'm trying to look professional, I'm trying to be taken seriously, but then old Billy Joe kid is just bloody vommed all over something or whatever. But it's again relating back to a conversation I was having with Charlotte Pascoe, because her daughter came and said hello towards the end of the show. It was amazing. Like, and the amount of reality that has been brought to light through everything that has gone on is the open door for all of these stay-at-home parents to go, you know what? I know I'm good enough. So where's the problem with me having a kid or whatever? I mean, don't get me wrong. You're going to have a couple of things that, there's going to be a couple of meetings where you want to try and set them for a time where you perhaps got another pair of hands to make sure that old Billy Joe's not, whinging and crying and whatnot. But at the same time, just a greater acceptance on the other end that life is happening still, believe it or not. Is phenomenal, and that's where I do believe you are a wonderful role model for just that. It's that unashamedly, I'm a mom, but I tell you what, I'm damn good at what I do, and and I want to help you be the same, and I think that is a wonderful example to set. I mean, for me, in terms of when you've been speaking to potential clients and what have you, have there been any other sort of consistent barriers to entry for a lot of these stay-at-home parents?
Yes.
What's been the real common sort of hurdle, right? What have they been?
Can I do it all? I think, and I think it's men and women, but again, I've been mostly speaking to moms, but can I do it all? Like, can I be a mom? Can I handle my clients? I feel like the longer we stay at home as stay-at-home parents, that is, the more confidence we lose in some ways. There is this like, oh my gosh, will I be able to go back into the real world and serve? Like, are my skills still relevant? Are my, am I still good at it? Do I remember even how to deal with a client? Like, all these kind of fears come boiling up. And to be honest, I'm actually like a qualified hypnotherapist as well, which was something I did years ago and have kind of started to bring back into my business coaching. But it's really about helping these women remember to go all in on themselves, to really go, okay, I have to first give it a shot and back myself 100% before I can say, no, I can't do this. Because you wouldn't have this dream, this aspiration, you wouldn't have this niggling want if you weren't capable of it. It's just going out there and doing it.
Absolutely spot on. I think, I mean, we've all heard very, very, if you talk to any stay-at-home parent, there's always that fear of being able to catch up or, get back on the same pace and, and not getting left behind. And, when the reality is, when you become a parent, when you're a I always refer to it as the hardest job in the world. Anything else that anyone does is going to be easier. Like, it really is.
Totally.
Like, screw that. I'll take the CEO over a screaming 2-year-old any day of the week, right?
Oh my God, so much easier.
and that's where I think we need to flip the script on that a touch and say, you know what, you guys are just like, you need to understand that you guys are made of steel. You are made of sterner stuff.
Yeah,
right?
totally. And I think they forget the freedom that it will give them and the happiness and all that until they get back in it. Because so many of these amazing women that I've been helping, once they get back in it, they're like, I was living in a bubble. I just didn't even realize I was living in a bubble. It's like someone turned on the light and, everything's brighter and I can, it makes them better parents, in all honesty. Like, the women I've been working with, all of them, I think would say, I think all of them, I can't think of any that wouldn't, that it makes them better parents, having something for themselves, like actually taking that back in some ways.
And sort of taking back some of their own personality, right? And and like I said, I think what you mentioned about your child, advancing your life, complementing your life,
enhancing, probably a good word.
Enhancing your life, absolutely, that's a great word for it. I think that's realistically what being a parent is all about. You don't be a parent to sacrifice everything that you've done and achieved and whatnot, do you? None of us really go in with that intention, but there is almost, like you said, there's this sort of society assumption or sort of that sort of thing that where the society sort of assumes or presumes that you're going to all of a sudden, because you're a parent, you're automatically incapable, and that's a bit daft, really, isn't it? So it's an incredible message, and it really needs to get out there. And particularly, if we were to think about, and I have thought about this, if we were to think about particular demographics who could really stand to just completely dominate the back half of this year. I mean, stay-at-home parents have been tested more than ever with the whole, when you throw in the homeschooling and all that sort of jazz. And yet, the overwhelming feeling is the fact that it has been achieved, it has been done. Is there a greater appreciation for teachers? God, yes. But in the same instance, my word, I think a lot of parents need to look at themselves and go, "Wow, we're all right here. Like we're pretty bloody good at life." And then look to see how they can utilize that sort of awareness to a greater extent.
Totally, I agree. And I think, like, I think parents in general, I've heard a lot of particularly dads who've been working in corporate, who've been, of course, home during this period, appreciating their wives more. And, a few of my friends' husbands have lost their jobs, and they've actually been doing the stay-at-home dad business, while the moms, who we've kind of created businesses along the way, have been actually maintaining their business. And again, that appreciation, like it's kind of almost like a rebalancing, I've been noticing in some ways. Like, there's just so much balancing out and appreciation kind of going around for so many people that have always deserved it, but maybe didn't always get it.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? I think generally speaking, there's been a greater awareness brought around, the roles that people do play. I think there'll be a lot of people that will absolutely feel that there's just a relief that people are paying attention, right? A relief that you know what, finally someone's actually starting to acknowledge how hard it is being a stay-at-home parent, and then hopefully there's going to be a greater parity with regards to relationships, right? You know, with respect to workloads and so on and so forth. You know, because that's still a bit of an issue. I mean, look, there's parents that choose to do that, and that's how they choose to rock and roll, and that's totally cool. I mean, they're stronger people than you and I'm telling you that now, but but there's mental. Like, honestly, can I have some of what you're having? But I think that a lot of people need to. I think a lot of people need to understand that they have got a capacity that is greater than what they feel, and I think partners need to acknowledge that. Wowee, my partner does have a much greater capacity than what I give him or her credit for.
Totally.
Now, moving forward, with respect to the second half of this year, how do you feel? You know, I mean, let's just step away to a degree, half a step away from the whole stay-at-home parent thing. How do you feel we can utilize the lessons of what's gone on and your own personal lessons? You know, thinking about that sort of personal roller coaster you went on just before Corona hit. How can we utilize these lessons moving forward and really make sure that we create a foundation for ongoing success?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I think one of my biggest lessons that's kind of come through this whole period is, for one, making sure that my business is sustainable even if I get sick. So the first half of my year, going back 12 months ago roughly, I did get sick for 5 months, so I couldn't work, and a lot of my recruitment agency stuff really slowed down. But I was lucky because I had my online course and I had my coaching business, which was online, that really was still available to me. But because I had been focusing predominantly on the agency side, I hadn't done a ton on the other side and hadn't really focused my attention. So one of the things I realized when I got sick was I wanted to focus on really building something that I could sustain online and not be as time consuming. I really just got to give my love during that period, but it meant I was, not that really matters right now about location, does it? But I can't really go traveling. But that I was location independent. So coming back the first time, I realized those were the two areas I was going to focus. And that's really where I've put my attention. Now, moving forward, the next thing I really want to focus on that I've really seen a lot of growth for me in is collaboration. So working with one of my dear friends, Catherine Ross, who's an EFT therapist, who she actually helps me.
EFT.
Tapping, the good old tapping.
Yeah, checking.
Yeah. Do you know EFT?
No,
it's phenomenal. I highly suggest it. So
what does it stand for?
Emotional freedom technique.
Wow. Okay, cool. All right. Interesting.
So I'll dive back in and then I'll come back to this. But when I got sick last year, I had a thing called gestational trophoblastic disease, which is where you get pregnant and you actually don't get pregnant with a baby. You get pregnant with a tumor, and it sucks basically because you think you're pregnant. I got to 3.5 months and found out I wasn't, and that there's nothing but a tumor, and you feel very pregnant. You get very pregnant looking, and your hormones think they're pregnant, but they're just accelerated. And so coming off the back of that, I was exhausted. I was sick. My hair was falling out. Chemo was pretty much the option for me. They had 3 times where they're like, you need to figure it out. Otherwise, if your hormones don't come down, you're getting blood tests weekly. And I'm still getting blood tests now, even a year later. And, it's just this not only emotional from hormone roller coaster, but it's also this just emotional roller coaster in general for being an awful experience. And the exhaustion, I can't describe the exhaustion. I got told by a friend the other day who had breast cancer, who's just, been in remission. And she goes, Mel, that's not exhaustion, that's fatigue. You need to understand that's not exhaustion. That's not normal. I'm like, okay. But so the fatigue you experience is phenomenal. And I got put on to Catherine Ross at that point, and I don't even know, someone had recommended her. I couldn't even tell you who. And it was one session, and I'd gone from this emotional roller coaster of just feelings, like not even knowing who I was, why did this happen, like how does this happen, like all these confusion, to being like, okay, this sucks, but life goes on. And it doesn't make it right, but it was this kind of like neutralizing of all those big emotions. And I was literally within one session, and I was just blown away, like how back in control I was of my own feelings. And I thought, if I can do this with every part of my life, like if I can, like, my business, whenever we're having those weird fears about tech, or I know you're probably not having tech fears, I get tech fears, but all these different things that come up in business. And if we can get control of that, then we really can break through to whatever it is we want to be in, right? So coming into the second part of this year was really about, how can I bring this together? And I was like, I need to partner with Catherine, because I've got the business strategy stuff, and I know she can help people do, breakthroughs that they need, whether it be confidence, whether it be fear of success or fear of failure, or whatever it is. And and I felt like collaboration really coming forward is where we need to go. And it's also about fun too, isn't it? Like, that's fun. So much of the time in our own business, when we're by ourselves, can be very lonely. So yeah, I'm super excited to not only, bring those two things together, but also have a bit of fun, talk to more people, and also open up to the bigger world, her audience, my audience, and help each other.
I think collaboration is very quickly becoming such a key theme around this second series of The Greatest Comeback. It's something that I've always been a fan of anyway. But I think a lot of people are becoming way more aware of their own strengths and their own weaknesses, and understanding that they can't cover up all of their weaknesses all of the time. Therefore, and no one, not many people can afford to just plug it up with money and hiring people and stuff, right? So how can you prevent yourself from suffering from those weaknesses without breaking the bank? And collaboration is really the only way forward if you're in small business land, right? So I think it's a huge theme for the second half of 2020 is pooling resources and pooling databases or cross streaming your databases and what have you, and really trying to help each other. That's what small business is supposed to be about, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it brings that fun element, because I know we were talking before we got on here about like fun and how it's so easy to like follow passions, but then you lose the structure sometimes when you're following that fun. But you can actually bring that fun back in with collaboration, but still have that structure, I find. And I know that's an important one for me as well. So kind of trying to bring more fun back into my business in that way, rather than going, oh wow, coronavirus hit, how does that look now? How do you have to pivot? Because pivot was the key word back then, right? Like, it was the pivot.
Pivot and the new normal. Far out. No.
You though, because it really was about pivoting at that time. But it was like, but I'm over it. I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know what, Mel? This has brought a couple of real key topics into the light, which I think a lot of people will find extremely useful. The thing with the Silver Lining Gang is, like, we genuinely don't script any of it, and so to go down that sort of how stay-at-home parents can really thrive and blossom in this sort of new arena, and the new and this sort of reality is phenomenal. The potential is outstanding and incredible, and there's going to be way more acceptance of those stay-at-home parents now in the workforce. But I think the need to collaborate, not just for your business sake, but also for your own health and well-being, mentally, physically, accountability, is so crucial for the second half of 2020, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to be honest, it was always relevant, but it's just become more relevant now. Like, I don't think we actually said how we actually met. It's like actually quite funny how we met. Do you remember how we met?
No, I actually can't.
No, you can't. So, I mean, I was the coffee shop queen in
That was it.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember now. Because I was waiting for someone else, and we ended up chatting because you were waiting for someone or something.
Yeah, and then you forgot your phone at my table.
Yeah.
So like, and yeah. So then it was like, it's really funny. Like, we met at a coffee shop, both working out of a coffee shop because we've both been remote working. And then, you know, from there, we started catching up, you know, every once in a while and being like, how's business? Because two different sectors completely. But that collaboration of also just ideas and getting outside your own bubble and finding out what's possible and, you know, making sure you have business buddies so that you're not just doing this yourself. You don't have to do this yourself. Like, it's so important.
Absolutely. That is such a good point to end on. None of us are doing this by ourselves. And if you feel that way, just reach out, man. Reach out to this show. Reach out to Mel. She's very easy to find. You know, just reach out to anyone that you know, even if you don't know them, but you feel that for whatever reason you've seen their content or whatever the case may be, and you think, you know what, it might be worth seeing if I can have a quick yarn with those people. This is the time where a lot of people are going to be so much more forthcoming with those conversations. So such a good point to end on, guys. No one is alone in any of this. Mel,
nothing better than actually asking for help.
You have been fab, Mel. You've been absolutely fab. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and imparting some of your fabulous wisdom to the crew. And there's been lots, you know, you've got Jessica that's really sort of been pumping your tires on the comments there, which is great. But gang, if you have found some value out of this, please share it around. At the end of the day, the silver lining is not got anything to do with business. It's more about social, moral, and issues generally speaking that society is trying to work out. And if we can be of any assistance, feel free to share it around. But look, Mel, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. It's always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your week. All right.
Thank you. You too.
Take care, gang.